Now, thousands of Myanmar nationals from different ethnic minorities have been fleeing the country since the coup there in 2021. More than 30,000 from Myanmar's Chin ethnic group have settled in northeastern India. They're mostly a Christian minority from the border region. But for those who have fled to India, prospects are dire. They're not recognised as refugees and they've been left in political limbo. DW's Adil Bhatt visited one of the refugee camps in the Indian state of Mizoram, where refugees are living a life of uncertainty.
On the edge of India's northern state of Mizoram, this refugee camp is home to hundreds of people from Myanmar's Chin state. Sinharling and his family fled across the border after Myanmar junta troops burned down their home and village during the military coup in 2021. Taking what they could, they traveled hundreds of miles on motorbike through forests.
I miss my home very much. I want to go back.
Sinharling yearns for his farmlands and the peaceful days before the coup.
When I saw that our village was burned down, I was heartbroken and I wept for days. I was very sad to know that I have no home where I can return anymore.
With no income for months, he struggles to support his family and his wife. Her health has suffered since being here.
My heart condition gets worse. And when I think of my village and our situation, I have difficulty in breathing. They tell me not to worry, but I know being a refugee is very difficult.
Sinharling is out looking for work. He visits this market, but once again, he has no luck today.
They haven't got a job for me. They say I'm too old to work.
This is just one of the many refugee camps along Mizoram's border with Myanmar. Each time clashes erupt between Chin rebel groups and junta troops, there is an influx of migrants. They are welcomed here because of shared ethnic bonds. But once here, many displaced people find themselves in limbo and struggle to survive. Today, members of the Young Mizo Association, an NGO, are on their way to the camp to distribute food and other daily essentials. They are the main source of help for people arriving from Myanmar. Their leader, Lal Sangzula, and his team make door-to-door visits to check families who need assistance.
The main reason local NGOs like ours help them is that those people are our brothers and we belong to the same ethnic tribe, especially those who live near the Mizoram-Myanmar borders.
The Chin people who live in this camp are predominantly Christian. Every Sunday, they gather in this makeshift church to pray for the safety of their people and loved ones left behind. Community gatherings like this offer respite.
We pray that our country will be a safe and peaceful place and that we will not be refugees. We will be able to return to our homes and live in freedom. Our prayer is that our country will be a democracy.
Sinharling and others who fled Myanmar know that until things change, they can't return home. But they continue to hope they will find a place where they belong.
Let's get more on that story from Pradip Panjubam. He's the editor of the Impal Review and has covered the conflicts in the region extensively. Pradip, welcome to DW. Since the coup in Myanmar almost 3 years ago, several ethnic groups have fled the country. Can you tell us why the Chin people are leaving?
Oh, that's because of the conflict there, and the fight has been going on for a long time, and the Myanmar army has been attacking the ethnic groups which are resisting the junta. That is the reason, basic reason why the people had to flee their home and take shelter in safer places.
OK, so they're fleeing to India. you said they're looking for safer places, but India doesn't recognise refugees, does it? So what kind of security is on offer there for the Chin?
Oh, that's again another unfortunate kind of a circumstance where the Indian government has not signed the Refugee Commission agreement, and which is why refugees are not recognized here. So they are given special status in the sense that, but without any official kind of say they would be, officially illegal in India, but still they're given shelter on humanitarian ground. And also many of the people who come across actually go to Delhi where they enlist themselves with the UNHCR, and then they get the refugee status, and then they are taken to countries which recognizes refugees. But it's very unfortunate, very tragic what's happening now.
OK. And what about the political situation? I mean, is this situation creating tension between India and Myanmar, between the governments there?
Between the government, it's not so much because of the ethnic movement, but because China is also interested in Myanmar. India has, of course, a lot of interest in Myanmar as well. The Act East policy to connect with the East. But because of China, there is this opposition because China has a strong presence, and they need to have a strong presence there in Myanmar because they need a shorter land route to the Indian Ocean. Otherwise, they would have to go by the Malacca Strait, which is quite a detour, and China has a big stake there, and that of course has prompted other countries to have an interest in Myanmar. Not so much for Myanmar, for Myanmar also, but also because China is there. There is some big power politics as well.
OK, a complicated situation. Pradeep Panjubam, thanks so much for bringing us up to date.
Thank you very much.
And let's get more. We are joined now by Harsh Pant from the Observer Research Foundation think tank in Delhi. Thank you so much for your time. Several ethnic groups from Myanmar are fleeing intense fighting and lack of security. We know about the Rohingya, for example. Tell us a little bit more about the situation for the Chin ethnic group.
Well, I think the situation is getting worse because the fighting is getting worse, and we have seen how the border areas along the India-Myanmar border, the pro-democracy militias and the government of Myanmar, the military government of Myanmar, they are both fighting a vicious war. And in some ways, in some places, in large parts of those border areas, the pro-government militias have been able to push back the Myanmarese junta. So there is a lawlessness, a lack of governance that now pervades a large part of this border area, and therefore it poses enormous challenges because traditionally the Chin community, as your report was suggesting, have close linkages between the two sides of the border, and people have been moving freely across the border because of these ethnic linkages. And the war has now pushed a lot of these people into very dire situation. And the absorption of in India as they move towards India, that also puts pressure on the Indian state. So Mizoram, for example, given the historical linkages and ethnic linkages, have been able to absorb a lot of these refugees, but it also creates local problems there. So I think it's a serious situation, whichever way you look at it.
And you're using the term refugees, but ultimately India is not recognizing them as such. Local governments, however, in Mizoram, they don't seem to mind them, however, crossing the border. So can you tell us a little bit more about, the safety for these individuals who are fleeing from Myanmar once they get to India?
I think they remain very safe, primarily because it's a community where they are being absorbed, and the leaders, the local of their ethnicity, they view them as part of their tribe, as part of their and an extension of their community. So in that sense, I don't think there is any problem with their security in India. But I think the broader challenge remains that given India's own position on refugees, and the challenge where increasingly, if the pressure continues, then local demographics and local resource constraints would mean that there is going to be a lot of contestation around in this area among various communities. At the moment it is relatively stable and they have been absorbed. The local communities are helping them in India. But I think it's also a question of what happens long term, what happens to the long-term viability of these people, and if the problem is not solved in Myanmar, where it seems to be getting worse, then I think the expectation that there'll be more refugees, that problem becomes even worse.
Harsh Pant in Delhi, thank you.